Welcome to Signs of Life, exploring survival of consciousness. Brought to you by Forever Family Foundation. On the web at foreverfamilyfoundation.org.
I call your name. The echo is haunting. The echo is always the same. I call your name. The echo is haunting. An echo can never be changed. So I call your name. Your name.
Hello and welcome to Signs of Life Radio. On the fourth Thursday of every month, you get top billing. This is your show. It's about your personal experiences, and everyone has a story to share. We invite you to share yours with us. So I'm going to give you the phone numbers to call in before we get to the rest of this intro and introduce your other guest co-hosts. So please grab a paper and pen so you can call in at 888-627-6008 or 323-744-4831. So many of us have personal experiences that defy mainstream thinking. And on this show, we explore those types of experiences, what they mean to us, how we can integrate them into our everyday lives, and share them with others. So this is where we develop the muscle to share these stories with people we trust. And although mediums provide a valuable connection to the deceased, this show centers around your direct experiences, which do not involve a medium. And I'm Kim Saavedra, director of the Comlock Center in California. And my guest co-hosts who are here to be with you tonight are Dr. Betty Kovács, author of The Miracle of Death and Merchants of Light, as well as our wonderful friend and Forever Family Certified Medium, author of Spirits They Are Present, Janet Mayer. So please, let's welcome everyone to our special show where they call in and make a difference.
Okay, that's great.
Yes. Hi, Kim. Hi, Betty.
Hi, Janet. Welcome back.
Yes.
You were really missed last week, although we did have a big treat having Bob with us.
Yeah, Bob is such
Yes. You have the master. He was with you last month. I'm jealous, but he always has so many amazing stories to share. And I know they're very, they really get you in the heart, but they're also very heartwarming in a way to show that, there really is a lot going on here. And, if people just kind of pay attention and open up and, this is a safe place to talk about your, experiences. And I think I'm sure he shared many stories. So, I'm sorry I missed you guys, but I know that you had Bob. So that was wonderful.
And we also know that you had a good time. So that's good.
I did.
What have you been thinking about lately, Janet?
Well, I actually kind of had this cute little story I was going to share that happened this morning. I have, like many people, I have a camera on my front porch or for my front porch, the front door, and it beeped in the morning and I'm used to that. It's always usually, it's kind of covered. So we have a couple birds that always fly on the light or this or that. And, I always kind of watch them and then, go about my day. Well, this morning when I turned on my app to look at it, it wasn't birds. There were two little boys that had ran up to my front porch. And on my front porch, I had decorated for Halloween, and I had this ghost that I made that I put on the porch, and he's like peeking behind a chair. And it was just, a fun little thing. And it's kind of holding the chair on one side and on the other. And I could hear the two little boys talking, and he said, well, look behind it. Is there anything behind it? And, the other little boy is like, they're just talking. And he said, it's really soft. And he's rubbing the ghost. And, he takes off and the other little boy takes off and he stops and he runs back. And he runs up and grabs the little ghost and starts rubbing it, on the side. And he goes, it is very soft. And they took off. And I just wish I would have had, the moment to talk through the speaker and say, hey, but it was really interesting because it hit me really clearly. I thought it was really interesting when they said it was really soft and smooth, and I was thinking, the few times that I have been touched by a spirit, it has been soft. It has been a light touch. It has been comforting. And I was like, that's so cool that, even little kids, that they were looking at it in a different sense. It caught me in a sense of, there's a lot of beauty there that, if people, when they have something come through from a loved one, it a lot of times comes in really soft and really loving and smooth. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I just could have ran after those two kids? And I mean, the grandma was walking the one down to the bus stop, but if I could have ran after him and said, hey, wait a minute, I want to tell you something. You can't, because, we've been, kind of drilled growing up to the limitations of what we have. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we really could just start them that young and say, there aren't any limitations. And speaking of ghosts, they don't really look like this, but they do look like somebody and kind of go into that whole story. And of course I couldn't do that, but it made me think about it. And I thought, we are kind of everyone at Forever Family Foundation is changing the narrative, and they're opening people's eyes and making them see, what is around them and what is possible, and that your loved ones do come through. And, you can get, signs if you pay attention. You can get touched by spirit. You can have, a dream or premonition, and it can all come from your loved ones. And I think that, just having the show, whether someone calls in or not, it's important that people pay attention and kind of expand their awareness and their limitations and have expectations of a loved one around them. I do that all the time. And I'm sure, you both do too. Betty and Kim talk about that, about, if a loved one comes to you, you're asking for a sign or something, and then you kind of say thank you and you go on. And it's like, if everyone had that all the time, just think of how much comfort we could receive,
I think so. And I think you're absolutely right about the fact that it really starts with children. Is that I remember when my son was little, and it was so open to everything. But when he asked me directly about death and do people survive, I didn't know at that time when he was little. I didn't really have the experience I had later. And so I said, well, I don't really know for sure. And I told him about different ideas that people have. And so then he just looked at me and he said, well, Mommy, I know. and then he proceeded to tell me where his grandfather was, that he was on another planet and he was living. And I thought, his imagination took him there or what, I don't know. But it was like he wasn't willing to accept this left brain trying to be fair
Not
attitude.
so sure.
Giving all the different positions. And now and of course, I really did keep on trying to find out even while he was alive. But I just think the more we know, the more we can share with confidence with our children, the beauty, the magic, the incredible aspect of being alive. And that's been so beaten down in our culture and so laughed at and denied and thrown aside, and throw a sop at it. Who cares? It's just silly, or you must be out of your mind, or that's your imagination.
Whatever you need to think to be all right.
Right.
Out of bed in the morning.
Exactly. And especially teaching in college. I mean, you just, if you said anything out loud. But I think that the more we know, the better we can be with our children. We can help them to open up to that magic, which really they are just ready to be open to. They are in the magic, you might say, in a way.
Well, and I think it helps too that, when, like our listeners, when they have an experience, to share it with the family or share it with, their children or their parents or whoever it may be, and let them know, hey, this happened. And, I think that it kind of opens the door a little more for someone else who's not real sure, or they're like, wow, well, I kind of had this experience and I kind of had that. And I think, even like for me, when I had it as a child, I had tons of experiences, and a lot of times I thought, oh, that can't be right. I probably didn't really see that. And I, that's why I always started writing things down. And I thought, I know I knew that. I know this came through. I know I felt it. I know I felt something, and even a couple of weeks ago when, I was thinking of my uncle, And it was really strong. And I kept thinking, wow, I wonder why he's coming through. I'm like, okay, I'm going to say hi to you. You know, it's great to see you, Uncle Paul. And like that weekend, I said something to my sister and brother, and I said, you know who I was really thinking about this past week? And my sister's like, I know. And I'm like, Uncle Paul. And she's like, yeah, so was I. And my brother's like, I had a thing where it happened this week too. And all of a sudden my sister's like, well, you know what it is? And I'm like, no. She goes, it's the anniversary of his passing. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so many years ago. I didn't remember the date because it was so long ago, but all three of us like had a shared experience. And I thought, how cool is that? And that we could all talk about it. And then we just kind of went on with whatever next we were talking about, you know, and it was kind of cool because I thought, you know, if people would, you know, start doing that more with each other, it could become the norm and we could be more in tune and more connected. Yeah. And I think that would help a lot too.
It would help. And I think that's why we have the show,
That's exactly
is
right.
that we do want people to tell their stories. We've been on here long enough that we've told a lot of our stories, haven't we, Janet? And
gosh, yeah. I'm sure people are tired of my stories, but yeah, I mean, you know.
I feel that about mine as well. But if you out there don't call in, then you're going to hear repetitions of our stories. And we have had word that someone sent a notice to her friends, many friends.
A special circle of ladies that we know about.
Who are to show up tonight. So we hope that you will call in because don't be shy about it. I mean, just listen to us. And that we would love to have you call in. It's just so important to hear other people's stories. And it is true that once you give it language and voice and others hear it, somehow or other, that increases its energy. And that's a very good thing.
Right. I guess we could give them the number again and make sure that people have it.
She's ready to roll with that.
I'm ready because we're going to get our callers in.
Yeah, we got to get
We need a good show. This is, we're not going to have a live show next month because the fourth Thursday of the month in the U.S. We'll be celebrating our Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, oh yes, that's true.
Now's your chance.
So don't wait till. I don't know about Christmas, but
it doesn't interfere with the Christmas show.
It doesn't interfere with Christmas. So please call now. We want to hear somebody else's story.
That's right. 888-627-6008 and 323-744-4831. And I kind of want to just go back to what Janet was talking about and the little boys and how they sensed that softness in the ghost that Janet had made. And those gentle touches that you're thinking, what was that? You know, we've heard people talk about that touch on the cheek or a pat on the back. Or Janet, you were talking about, I need a back rub.
Yeah.
The gentleness. I mean, you're not going to get whooped upside the head. You're just going to...
Well, I don't know. Some of us might have had to. There was a time in my life when to get through, they would have had to hit me up inside the head.
Yeah.
Well, we have a caller.
Oh, very nice. Thank you, Janet. Melanie is calling us from Nevada. Welcome, Melanie. Thank you so much for calling.
Hi. Well, I've called before with stories, but I have plenty of my daughter crossed almost 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years in February. And I think in the beginning, and I don't know if this is true, you know, I know grief is different for everyone, but in the deep, heavy, sad grief, it was like I was like any sign was like something I was grasping at. But as I've kind of matured into my relationship with her, it's changed a little bit. And I just wanted to share some thoughts and then maybe open a discussion and, you know, with other callers and especially with all three of you, because you've always been so amazing. But it's like, as I've kind of matured into my relationship with my daughter, I got this insight that, you know, because I was like, well, she's over there and she's out there and I'm not a medium. So I don't have those insights as Janet does. But for me, it was like this, it's like there's no over there. It's like we're all together here swirling all around, and it's just I'm in body and she's in her energy field, and we cross. And sometimes it is, oh, yeah, hi, honey, thank you for that sign. And sometimes it's thank you for that insight. Or it's like, I really need your energy right now. but it's not like this big, huge, like in outer space thing. And I'm just like sharing, that's my perception. So I wanted to put that out there to see what you all thought about it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think, well, the way I see it, I mean, like you said, we all have our own personal view. I loved how you said you matured into the relationship with her over the years. And I think that's very true. And, I a lot of times I will say something to someone else, say, well, on the other side, although it's not really another side, it's just another space. And they're right around us. It's like you can reach out and touch them. They can reach out and touch you. It's that close, that connected. So I totally, agree with you on that point also. And I think that is true, that it does mature. I mean, over time, it's like someone just kind of, was talking to you and they just said that and you're like, okay, thank you. Yeah, I know. And you feel them, that's them, it's their energy. And you don't have to have, like you said, this big, fireworks go off or, something fall off the table. You can have something it's deep and personal in that sense of, yeah, I knew that they just gave me the okay on that, or they're trying to push me to go do that. And I think that's beautiful that you're paying attention, that you're listening, and you're still carrying on that relationship, which I think is really important for people to know, that when your loved one leaves their body, they're not gone. They're still around. They're in a different space. They're still around, and you can still have a relationship with them in your own way. And sure, it isn't physical. You can't, give them a hug, but at times you can feel that hug. And so there are different ways that they can come through. And I think that that's beautiful that you're experiencing that and understanding that, yes, like you said, you were in, deep grief and the loss. It's overwhelming and it's hard to move forward. But over time, it has matured and it has brought you to a different level. And it's a place that you've never believed you could have been without this happening as well,
Yeah, that's exactly it. But I want other people too, who are maybe, just fresh into the start of this journey or the relationship transition. I'm just a regular person, and it exists. So being okay to mature into it, that's the only way I can say, because it was like my daughter has always just kind of been waiting for me to get there. I think, patiently waiting, but it's up to us to deal with our emotions and to accept all the emotions that we have so that we can get that sad shifted. When I was having a conversation with one of my daughter's friends, who is still my friend, and she's very spiritual as well and feels my daughter frequently. But we were talking and I said, sometimes it's like, just in the beginning, it was just so hard to see anything but the sadness. And so really being intentional about owning it and healing, working on that healing, I think is so important. And in the beginning, you don't think that's going to change or get better. Like I'd ask people, does it get better? And everybody's like, well, it doesn't get better. They didn't say that, but it's like, oh, it just changes. But it does get better. That heaviness does get better.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Melanie. It does get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's important to say it, though, because no one would say it to me, and that was a little bit hopeless. Fortunately, I had good support. But anyway, I just wanted to share some of those thoughts because, it's like I said, almost 3 years in, and it's an ongoing thing. And time is, as you all have talked about, it doesn't really mean anything. But when you're in the first part of the sad, it does mean something.
It does. And absolutely. And Melanie, it's kind of I've heard so many people say it, and I've seen it in films, is that it doesn't get better, it changes. And I just wonder how many people have picked it up, because I agree with you. It changes. I can remember feeling, sitting on the edge of the bed. Someone was, a friend of mine was there, and she walked by the door, and I looked at her and I thought, I will be completely absorbed by this sorrow. I just felt like maybe I couldn't breathe or I couldn't move. It was very short, But I did go beyond that. I never had that again. But in a way, my situation was different than growing into it or maturing into it. I love that statement. In the beginning, we were just, my husband and I both were, well, as everyone is when they lose a child. But it seems that, I had been working, trying to heal my left brain dominance. And I had been to Peru twice working with shamans. I'd been working so much with so many different energies. And it was as though my husband and I both had most of the experiences in the early time for about 2 years. And then my husband was killed. But it was very powerful. And it's as though I needed to break through that wall that I had, and my son was giving me some directions through my husband that
from the other side
that I did need to let go more, and I thought I was doing really well. I thought I was really letting go, but it was just it was very powerful. A lot of information coming through, and then after my husband was killed, also, but then after that, it wasn't like that, and I thought. I sort of intuitively began to feel that I needed to learn another language. I need to be open, like using your phrase, mature into a different way, a more subtle way of relating to them. So I just think, all of our experiences are different, but I agree with you that it does get better. It does get better.
Yeah. I just wanted to hear that, I think, but it's not easy. Like you said, I mean, you had two very difficult shifts in such a short time. It's like hard, it's just hard, but I just think, I guess I want to just like encourage people to be open to, like you always say, be open and with work. I mean, we have to do our work too. I mean, when we're so sad, we have to be in the sad, but not, avoid it or push it away. It's just hard. It's so hard, but there is that hope, and there is the change. And our love, I call them loves, our people, they wait. They're like, they'll be patient. Their energy will try and help as much as it can, but they'll they're patient. I think, I could sometimes mentally see my daughter just like thumbing her fingers, like, okay, mother, whenever you're ready, I'm here. So, anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to open that conversation, and especially that wording, it is semantics, but it can mean a lot. I think to people.
It opens up a lot. And while I did lose my son and my husband quite close together, I receive a lot of mail from people who have lost their children or their husbands or wives. And it's very close together often. And it's very, very difficult. And I also receive mail from people who really have some very good intuition that they are in touch with the child who's died, but they've been so trained, as I was, in the left brain and that dreadful scientific worldview that there's nothing but matter, that they really struggle. And I think that many people are struggling with them. I know, because I hear from them, that it's like they're on the edge of opening up to it, and it opening them. But it's just that old worldview keeps, hammering them. I even had an experience when I was after our son died, but I was still having trouble believing the incredible experiences that we were having. And I had a vision that of addiction, and that I was a major addict. And that was a bit of a shock, because I had been thinking, how can someone continue to do something that's so dangerous and harmful? And then I had this vision in which women from around the world, they were shamanesses, they were from around the world, they were around me, And they were pointing out that I was one of the biggest addicts they'd encountered, and that I was addicted to the rational mind, left brain, rational consciousness, and that I was having a terrible time opening myself up to the immensity of the universe. And that was such a shock. And then I played it out in the vision. I thought, well, that was nothing. If I could just have one more vision, then I would know for sure. I mean, I was like a drunk at a bar. Just give me one more drink. And I did keep having interesting things from these women who were clearly otherworldly. But it really opened me up to, first of all, my own addiction to the left brain, that I would have a vision, and then when the vision was over, my left brain would kind of dismiss it, try to make it nothing. Well, here in this vision, I was doing it in the vision, and I could see my left brain, that part of myself, just dismissing things with all of the evidence in the world. And it has certainly made me a little more open to others who go through that same thing, is that they have experiences, but they just can't be certain. Mm-hmm. And I guess my message is we have to be persistent. And eventually we connect that left brain with these visions in a way that they are in a sacred marriage instead of in a divorce state. But it was hard.
Sounds like an amazing experience. But the other side of that too is, because I'm a scientist. I mean, in psychology, I did a lot of research. But look at the fear too. What is making, if one is an individual who is really having a hard time bridging that gap, there are two things that I think I have used, and one is what's the fear? What is the fear to be open to that one might be feeling. But the other side is it's a Buddhist concept of, I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh or the Dalai Lama, or just the concept in general. It's like, to see, it's like when the energy leaves the body and it's not gone, that's a hard part for people. But it's like, well, look at yourself. If you're an adult or any age, really, where is your 5-year-old self? Like when you were 5, that energy didn't like die and disappear. Well, what's happened to it? We've grown, right? So our 5-year-old self is still within us, just like when we leave our body, our self now is still there. We just get to shed some of maybe the earthly things that are a little harder to manage, like the difficult emotions. So it's like, I think that's a little bit more tangible. It's like you can't say your 5-year-old self died or your 10-year-old self just disappeared and is gone. It just evolves and morphs, just like we're going to again once we cross out. Those kind of have helped me a little bit in terms of, trying to grapple with that because, and I think, all the books and stuff that are out there on Forever Family website, it's like there isn't proof that it isn't here and there isn't proof that it is here, speaking in terms of our, we can't prove it either way. So why not choose the one that is more hopeful, I say, and there's plenty of evidence supporting it.
Well, and I think now there's so many different kinds of evidence that even the anecdotal, we have to say that, when everyone is having this similar anecdote, you got to take that seriously. And even when there isn't fear, I think one of the most persistent and dangerous aspects of a Western mind is exactly what I experienced. And that is that it wants proof. It wants scientific proof. And when you're in the vision, it's as though you're experiencing it and it's realer than real. And no proof can be better than this.
Or is required.
Well, my husband had a lot of that. He was so involved in the experience of the other side that it was hilarious to even, and I had too, hilarious to even think of scientific evidence.
What?
It's like hilarious that would even come up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I was thinking too, when you were talking about, the fear is, I think, that is also what holds people back. They're afraid because they let their mind run in 20 different directions of, well, maybe this will happen or maybe that will happen. And it's like, instead of fearing, if you simply, sit down and just relax, whether you want to try to meditate or not, but to sit down and relax and say, okay, I would sometimes say, feel the fear and do it anyway. I think I bought a t-shirt like that back, in my 20s, feel the fear and do it anyway, because that's what I was doing. I would be afraid of what I was experiencing. And yet every single time I had an experience, it was amazing. It was unreal. It was beautiful. It was crazy. It was never horrible and never, it was never anything negative towards me. It was always something, to teach me or whatever I experienced, and yes, there were losses and that was very difficult and very hard. But at the same time, it's almost like spirit is teaching you at the same time. And if you listen, and if you open up, there's nothing to be afraid of, because they're sharing this amazing information with you in such simplified ways. It seemed like all the time it would just be just so smooth. It would come through and you'd think, wow, I never thought of it like that, or I didn't think something like this could happen. And then once I started, having the intention of being open or of paying attention and saying, okay, I know that you're around me. I feel it. I've seen things happen. I'm one of those people that I've had things move in my home and a lot of different strange experiences. But at the same time, I used to always say I was a chicken medium, because I was like, I would still jump, but then I'd just be like, my mouth would hang open like, wow, I can't believe that happened. Wow, that's amazing. And then I think, fear is such, fear and grief go hand in hand a lot of times. And it's kind of like, once you can get past that, it kind of opens you up to a new world as well. And it kind of gets rid of all those limitations you have. And now you can see what's coming through. And the connection can be amazing in its own sense. And like you said too, Betty, with proof, people would say, oh, I want proof. Well, what more proof do you need when you have your own experience? And even when you try to tell somebody and it seems like it's falling flat, you have to remind yourself, oh my gosh, I had that experience. That's what's most important.
And it's what very often the person you're telling has not had. But it's when they just kind of dismiss it. But I think that also the love that comes through, not simply from the ones we loved here and who loved us, but there's a love of the universe. There's a heart. The heart of the universe we now know is our heart too. We are at the center, as Brian Swim has said so beautifully, that in order to understand what we have discovered about ourselves, we have to retrain the mind to realize that to be in this existence is to be at the center, the heart of the universe. Every single person is. And in every Renaissance period of the reawakening of this information, there was an awakening that the heart, the centrality of the heart is necessary for higher consciousness. And when we do communicate or be present in that other dimension here, it's love. So many people talk about that, is that it's a love that you can't even begin to describe or communicate. But of course, we always try. Mm-hmm. But it's
no, that's true. I mean, I think I called it. It's not an earth love. It's beyond that. And I think that's true, Betty. That if any of your loved ones come through to share anything, to give you any kind of sign, it's out of love. That's what all this is. It's all surrounds love. And it's just, now we have to take that step into it and, kind of commit to saying, okay, I'm not sure, like if somebody says, I'm not sure if you hear me or not, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you this anyway. I think they should do that. You have a loved one over there and you're kind of like, I think I'm just going to say it and I love you and, give me a sign, show me something, I'm paying attention, whatever. And I always say too, to have them come through in the best way that fits for you. Exactly. Some people will say, well, I don't know if I'll get it this way or that way. And it's like, no, just ask them to come through in a way that fits best for you. And then when you let go of it and you let it go, then it opens up that door for them to come through in a way that they need to show you that they're around you and they're showing you love in their own way. And, and That's me. I think one of the most important things is to just be open to it.
Yes, and I think that very often in my experiences, it wasn't always the individuals who had been here, who were my family and who had died or in the other dimension, but there was a field of consciousness, of love. It might take on certain forms, just as it did when I needed to learn about how, even though I had always rejected left brain's fiction of superiority, that was not what I consciously accepted at all. And yet I had to realize that on an unconscious level, I had been brainwashed with the scientific proof business. And so even when those women from around the world, that consciousness took the form of these shamans from around the world, women who revealed that to me. But even while they're revealing, and it was always the case, even when I saw and I asked to see where I was offbeat, what was my shadow, and when they would reveal that to me, it was okay. I could accept it because it was done with such love that it was, and I guess that's a lesson, isn't it? That if we can reflect back to ourselves and others where we are missing or is our shadow side with such love that it can be accepted. I was always happy to see where I was short, where I came up short, because it was revealed with such love.
And we all have spots,
we do have blind spots.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to say one last thing and then get off so that hopefully other callers will come in. But on this whole proof thing, I think it's really important, and Betty, you were kind of alluding to this, but if I'm saying, well, I need proof that my daughter's energy is coming through, I think as individuals, we need to set like measures too. If that's the criteria, it's like, is it going to be 2 heart signs or is it going to be 1 impression in my brain? And I don't know if it will work that way, but if somebody needs proof, you kind of got to set what your measure is so that when you hit it, you can say, okay, there's the proof, rather than just this random open-ended, well, give me proof. You got to kind of set some benchmarks. And I would probably say that it would happen. But if you don't have any endpoint of what that proof looks like, you're never going to get there. So on that, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for the show, and I'm going to hang up, and hopefully other people will call in.
I hope so. And thank you, Melanie, for calling.
Melanie, I just want to say thank you for the words of wisdom. Be intentional about healing.
Yeah, that's good.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh, you did hear that. That's good. So great. That is so great.
That's true.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. And thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Melanie.
Oh, that's so great.
That was nice. Yeah.
That's great. And I remembered, Betty, when you were speaking about the experience of being addicted to the left brain, the words that I remembered you had used in The Miracle of Death, where you are addicted to ordinary consciousness.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly right.
Ordinary consciousness.
Yeah.
Even you don't have to think about left brain. It's just like,
ordinary.
Are you willing to let go of your handle on this being the only reality?
Oh, that's so good, Kim. It was so true. And I say in the book after that I'd been living in 1 square inch and calling it reality when it was such a vast universe. Yeah, it was, say it again, what you said.
We have another caller.
Yeah, ordinary consciousness. Yeah, well, that was it. Thanks, Kim, for reminding me.
Hi, Edie. Thanks for calling us.
Yeah, sure. So nice to be here. I just couldn't resist calling in.
Well, we're glad.
We are great.
Yeah. Well, I've had experiences with family members that have passed, and that to me wasn't too surprising, but I had an experience with a friend of mine which really shocked me. It was maybe about 6 months ago. We're members of a hospice support group and for people that our loved ones have passed. So we were all going to get together one evening, and she doesn't like to drive at night, so I told her I would go to her house and pick her up. Now, I'd never been to her house. I had never met her husband before. And I was in the car and I was driving and I was running late. And I get to her house and I just beep the horn and she's not coming out. And I'm like, now I'm getting a little agitated. Like, I just want to get to this event that we're supposed to be at. And why isn't she coming out? And so I'm like beeping the horn. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to go in the house. So I get out of the car and I go to the front door and ring the doorbell, and she lets me in, and she has a beautiful home. So I step through the door and I'm like, you have such a beautiful home. And all of a sudden, I take a few steps in the door. All of a sudden, her husband is on my right shoulder. He's like standing there. And I'm like, what? I turned around and I was like, and she's just like, she's doing her thing. She's not even realizing what's happening. And I see him, he kind of comes around and faces me and he says to me, oh, hi, who are you? And in my head, I was just like, well, I'm Edie. And he goes, oh, why are you here? And I said, oh, I'm just coming to pick up Linda because, I'm just coming to pick her up because we're going someplace. And he goes, oh, okay, it's really nice to meet you, with this big smile on his face. And my girlfriend now turns to me and she sees me like have this very strange look on my face. She goes, what's wrong? And I was like, well, I just saw your husband. And this is not something I would ever do to anybody. And she says, oh, that's okay. I think he's around all the time. And I'm like, all right. And so we went about our business. We went to this event that we were going to, and a few things happened at the event with the gentleman who was holding the event. His wife came through while I was there at the event, which also, it was like this whole, couple hours of these people showing themselves. And I went home that night and thought about how it was so vivid. And he was there. And I had never, like I said, I'd never met him, didn't know what he looked like, nothing. I had to call her up the next day. And I said, I just want to apologize. And she said, for what? I said, I would never do that to some. I said, I'm not a medium. I've seen my own family members, but I would never do that to somebody. I didn't want to upset you. And she goes, oh, no, I'm not upset. It's fine. It was okay. But I was shaken to the core, by seeing this person that I had never known before and having it so just right there.
Well, that's strange. You'd think she would want immediately to know, well, what happened? What did he say?
Well, I think she did ask me what he said. And I said he just wanted to know what I was doing there, because it was like his home, and somebody comes into his house that he doesn't know, and he wants, so I think that's what I told her, he just wanted to know what I was doing there. She goes, oh, okay. And that was it for her. But for me, I was like, whoa,
I think it's wonderful that you were, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay, I was just going to say, I think it was wonderful that you were, that in tune, that, that he came through to you, and that, you were in a place that, like you said, you were probably, a little shocked, but at the same time, it's like, okay, yeah, it wasn't so bad. Yep, that was okay. He had a message or he had something he wanted to ask. And, unfortunately, Linda, or your friend, wasn't as open as maybe, she could have been, in the sense of wanting to know more. But then again, maybe, that's where she is. That's her place. And until she goes a little further, she may call you in a couple weeks and say, when you saw my husband, da-da-da-da-da, and maybe you'll be able to have, more of a conversation with that. But I think it's also kind of important for you to remember that, okay, you're seeing more people outside of your family. So you're definitely hitting that line of, being in tune, being open. And, you can just, keep that open when you're around people, that you trust and care about, that if you do get a message, you can, share that with them. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, for sure. And I do know that that's where she's at, in that.
Right. And I mean, it's some, right. Go on.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't. Go ahead. Yeah, I don't know. And with that, how does this all relate to like people coming to you in your dreams? I mean, is that considered the same type? Because I get so much from my husband. In fact, like last night, it's been the third anniversary. It was just the third anniversary of his death, and we used to like to spoon at night, hug and spoon, and that has happened so many times since he passed. And I wake up and like I'm convinced he's there. If I could feel it, I can feel him on me, and it's just. Yeah, so but it usually it's almost like in a dream, and then I wake up and I'm still feeling it, type of thing. So, do you think that these people coming to you in dreams also, or is that like a whole separate thing?
Well, Jenna can say something too, but I want to say from the get-go that, of course, they come to us in dreams, and when you could feel him and feel it so strongly, I mean, that's a present. Even so much so that you would feel it when you wake up. No, I think there are many, we don't even know how many ways they can come to us, but whatever way they can get through, they will. And through symbolic language, the dream, vision, that's when they're present. One of the times they're present. Yeah. Don't you think so, Janet?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's, in one sense, I want to say, well, yeah, it's similar, but it is different because you could be in a dream state. You could be in a lucid state where, you're aware of what's going on, that you could be open enough that he knows that, he can come through at that time because it may be easier because you don't have, 20 billion thoughts going in your head throughout the day, as normal. And dream, when you're sleeping, you're letting go of that and it's allowing you to be open in that sense. And it could be coming through in a dream state. And it could be, I for some reason, I lost the word that I'm trying to think of what that is, but it's very similar in the way, but it's just a different way to present it. So I think that's still wonderful that you're getting it, however you get it, and we all get it in different ways. And I think that's, I definitely think that you have something big going on there, and that's great.
Yes,
I feel that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool. And I think just keep being, open, and, I think that you're very sensitive. So I think, keep that going. And like I said, when I said, that you can tell someone something if it comes through, I don't mean going around doing that everywhere you go, but you knew it was okay to do what you did when you told, told that other woman. And if she wasn't in the place, maybe eventually she will be. And it may be the same with family. Like, I'll tell family stuff. Sometimes I will and sometimes I won't. And it just depends on, where I'm at or where I feel like they're at. And so I think that that's important too.
And, with the dream works it's creative. It can do whatever it can create. And after actually there were 3 deaths in my family, my mother first, a year later, my son, and then 2 years later, my husband. And I was determined to get through this with as much grace as I could manage, stay upright. And I went through a series of dreams, which really, as I looked back on them, they were helping me to grieve, since I probably wasn't, I didn't let myself go deep into the grief right away because there was so much of it and my life was totally changed. But in my dreams, I went through the death of our son again and again in the most incredible ways. But in one way, he was killed in a car accident. It's a strange dream. And I was actually sitting in the freeway, gathering up the pieces of his body. And I put them in my lap and I'm chanting, "This is the body of my son." And I thought, when I woke up with that, I thought, how explicit and tragic. But I realized later, it was the dreamer in me that was forcing me to see and to go through that grief. And this is the point I really started out to make, is that I could look at that person and grieve for her because it wasn't quite me in the dream, but it really ignited the grief process, which in and of itself was deeply and profoundly healing. But I had been focusing on surviving, getting through this, and doing what I could to get through it. And my dreamers realized, no, you need to go into the depths of this grief. And by doing so, I was on the road to healing and real joy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me about that, and it was a glass bowl.
Yes,
in your
and
lap.
it was right at my uterus, like
Wow.
it was the symbolism of all of these cards would transform into new form, new life.
It's the sinking and swimming kind of.
Yes,
Right.
Yes, it's just a dreamer it's entirely spiritually creative. Sometimes it seems like it's just doodling around, but when it comes with a big dream, it can be so healing and magical.
Right.
So my husband, I'll tell you this and then I'll go. My husband had an illness and was reduced to, he had incontinence and was reduced to wearing, diapers, basically, for a period of time. And when he first had to put them on, he really wasn't too aware of what was going on. But you could see there was some, distraught. He was distraught about it, and there was a lot of things involved around that. So I had this dream one night, and he comes to me in the dream, and he's walking down the hallway, and he's wearing only the diaper, right? And he's laughing hysterically. And I'm like, what is so funny? And he's like, well, this is ridiculous. He goes, this is nothing. He goes, don't worry about this. This is not who we are.
Well,
this is just nothing, and he goes, don't even worry about it anymore, because I think he knew that I was like, that I was so concerned that he was concerned about it. He goes, it's nothing, and he was laughing at himself.
That is fantastic. That is so beautiful.
It was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah.
Well, it's certainly was balancing there again to keep the balance.
Freeze frame right here.
Freeze.
You don't need to keep this part.
Yeah, some things we really should let go of. That was beautiful.
Nice. Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So many lessons from him. Yeah. Thank you so much. I enjoy the first time I have been, heard the show, and I will continue to follow you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Edie.
Okay. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Wow.
You too. Wow.
Well, I was going to, Betty, I happened to come across this in your book that I just thought was really cool. I always put little stars and arrows and, Post-it notes and all kinds of things in your Merchants of Light book because you know how much I love it. But there was this one paragraph that really hit me, and I was like, I want to read this tonight because I think this is important for people to know. And it says, and you wrote this, it's page 176. While this world appears to exist in a place or space, it does not. The place or space where we find ourselves in this world is determined by our state of being. What appears to be a change of place is actually a change in our state of being. Space in this world are simply the external conditions corresponding to the internal states. And I thought that was so cool because I'm like, that is true. That is so true with when we lose someone and, the state of being we're in and where we connect with them on a level that we didn't think existed that actually has been around us all along, that we actually do, exist in this kind of, I know that it says it's by our state of being, but I just, when I was reading that, I was just like, oh, I really like that.
I'm glad you read that because we forget sometimes that the world we're in does reflect indeed our state of being and our choices to a great degree. And in the visionary state, it's very interesting that whatever you think, that's where you are.
As above, so below.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Even in the Gospels and the Nagamari text, they talk about that, is that in the visionary world, you think and you are there.
Right. Well, and I always think about that. I'm like, pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to what's around you. And I always say that about paying attention. And so to me, that was something that I thought, I really like that. But
that was beautiful.
I will go ahead and I can end with our Mahayama prayer for this evening. And like I said, we won't be on next month because of it being Thanksgiving in the U.S., but we will be back in December, right? So here we go for everyone, the Mahayama prayer. May all beings everywhere with whom we are inseparably interconnected be fulfilled, awakened, liberated, and free. May there be peace in this world and throughout the entire universe. And may we all together complete the spiritual journey.
Amen to that.
Amen. Yeah, indeed.
We sure need that now.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. And we hope you can join us in our next one, which will be on the 4th Thursday of December, if your festivities permit.
Yes, we look forward to hearing from you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.